Hello. Today we're going to take a look at advertising. Advertising is when we have space or time that is paid for by an identified sponsor. Sometimes people mistakenly use the expression word-of-mouth advertising. There's no such thing, okay, because there's no identified sponsor. When we talk about word-of-mouth, we're talking about buzz marketing, we're talking about personal selling, we're talking about public relations or publicity, but it's not advertising. Advertising, we buy time, we buy space, and people know by looking at it who paid for that, who bought that time or space. So the first thing we're going to look at before we look at how to go about developing an advertising campaign are the different types of advertising we can do. Please keep in mind as we go through these different types that we can do more than one in the same campaign. Okay, the first type of advertising we're going to look at is called institutional advertising. And institutional advertising is any time we do an ad that is trying to further the image or the reputation of an organization. For example, if we are just talking about our bank and we talk about how we're the friendly bank, how we really care about you, and we don't necessarily talk about specific services or specific products that we offer. We're just talking about who we are and that we want to be involved in the community and we want to help you and be there for you and that we're going to treat you like family. That's all institutional advertising. It's trying to change the way people might think about their name, their company, their organization. We also have something called advocacy advertising. And this is when we take out an ad that's trying to further a view, a position, a social issue. Now, back in the 60s and 70s, you would see companies taking out ads, especially newspaper or magazine space, promoting different political views or political candidates. And that would fall under this heading. We don't see that too much anymore. It's pretty risky to kind of take a stand on political issues, so organizations stay away from that. However, what we do see a lot of are PSAs. PSA stands for Public Service Announcements. And these are ads, don't drink and drive, be a mentor, take time to read with your children, those kinds of things. An organization may pay for that, may sponsor those messages, and the purpose of those is some kind of social agenda, trying to do a public service for the community. What we see most often, though, is product advertising. And product advertising can take many, many different forms. One of the things we look at is what kind of demand are we trying to build if we're promoting a specific product. Primary demand is a demand for the product no matter what company manufactures it. Many times we'll do this initially if a product is new to the market. So there may be 2 or 3 different companies producing it. We're just trying to get people familiar with the product. We call that advertising pioneering advertising. Pioneering advertising is going to be very informational, explaining how the product's to be used, what the benefits are, etc. Okay, the second type of demand is selective demand, and this is demand for our brand, our specific product. And again, this is what we see most often. Most of the ads that you see on TV and in newspapers, on radio, etc., are competitive advertising, where they're just trying to say what's good about them, what our benefits are. Possibly it's not even talking about the product. It's just doing a little bit of that institutional advertising as well, trying to get an image attached to that product. Comparative advertising is when we compare our product to a competitor. It may be that we directly name the competition, or it may be that we're comparing ourselves to the leading brand, which you've all seen and heard. If you name the competitor, you need to be very careful that everything you say is backed up and accurate. Some countries do not allow comparative advertising. Germany, for example, it is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. So if this is an avenue that you want to take, you have to make sure in each country that it is something you're allowed to do. A comparative ad kind of shows how we are next to the competition, but it doesn't always have to be a direct competitor. Many years ago, I saw a print ad for a LeBaron convertible, which they don't even make anymore, compared to a Mercedes. And the cars were very similar in appearance, and the copy and the headline of the ad was very complimentary to Mercedes. But it said, think of us as a Mercedes with a $30,000 discount. And it explained, we recognize Mercedes has superior workmanship, and it goes on, says other things. However, for $30,000 less, here's what you still get. And it was a real unique approach, and I thought very effective as well. Reminder advertising is when your product has been around for a while, people are familiar with it. You will just do occasional advertising so they don't forget about you. We see this with FTD Florist, usually around Mother's Day and around Thanksgiving. They'll do some ads just trying to say, remember, we're still there. You know, you want to send flowers, we got these beautiful bouquets, don't forget we're here. Everybody knows who they are, everybody's familiar with them, they just try to remind us about them. The last type of advertising we're going to look at is called reinforcement advertising. Reinforcement advertising is usually done in conjunction with another type. It's usually not done on its own, though it can be. Reinforcement advertising is when we're trying to reduce cognitive dissonance. Remember, that is when people buy a product and they have doubts. Did I do the right thing? Could I, should I? You know, what could have happened? With reinforcement advertising, we're trying to say you made the right decision. For example, if we do a TV ad and a line in that ad says, research studies show that 99% of all purchasers of this product would buy it again, that's trying to reinforce that you made a good decision, you're in good company. Now, reinforcement advertising might be done by itself in terms of direct mail, where they mail out something to people who have bought it before, congratulating you, reiterating their warranty, etc. That could fall into that category as well. Okay. So now that we have an idea of what the different types of advertising are, let's look at how we actually develop the campaign. Usually we have 5 steps. We're going to broaden our horizons today, though, and go for 6 steps in this process. Just as we talked about when we talked about developing a promotional strategy, our first thing is to identify the target audience. For this advertising campaign, who are we going to target? If we look at a lot of the major producers of product, Procter & Gamble, Coke, Pepsi, all sorts of manufacturers, they have a very wide target market. But they develop separate campaigns for different segments within that target market. So we're saying, which segment are we going after with this campaign? We then need to establish what our message is going to be and our budget. We talked about budgeting last time. Let me talk for just a minute about this message. People, other than me, do not study advertisements. They don't look at these advertisements and say, oh, you know what I really think this is trying to say? You know what I really want to get out of this? Like I said, I do. But nobody else does. Nobody in their right mind anyways. So we need to pick out what 1 or 2 main points we want to get across. And they got to be simple. We don't want anything complex. We don't want too much information or too many different components to the message. Simple, easy to understand, so people who are exposed to it can absorb it, because they're not going to study it. They're not going to put that effort into it. We can actually start designing the ad at this point. We are, as we talked about last time, going to look at what kind of appeal we want to use, fashion, humor, emotional, fear, testimonials, and the specific techniques we want to use. How are we going to create this ad? What special effects are we going to do? Is there anything we can do that's going to make it interactive, that's going to draw people in? An example, I'm trying to get my months right here, in February of 2006, Kentucky Fried Chicken announced that they were running a new type of ad, a TV commercial. If you had a DVR and you recorded that commercial and played it back at slow speed, you would see a code or a secret message in there. Now, I personally never saw it. I'm assuming it tells you that you can go and get a discount if you mention a certain word, or you can go to a website and get a coupon. It's probably giving some kind of information like that. But getting you more involved in it, making it stand out from the other ads is very important, and that is one technique that they used. As we also mentioned, as we talked about the communication process and designing our strategy, is we want to test everything we do. And at this point of the process, we're pre-testing it. We're not actually putting our product out there yet or the campaign out there. We want to do some samples, get a group of people in, expose them to this ad, see what their reaction is, if there's any confusion over the message, etc. Then comes the big decision. What media are we going to use? How often are we going to run it? What times are we going to run it? I'm just going to briefly talk about the major media that we have listed here. There are more than these. Television is the first thing people think of when they think of advertisements, and it is very expensive. You have not only your airtime that you're buying, but also the production value as well. There can be a lot of cost in there, especially in network and major cable stations. You go to local cable, though, and it becomes very affordable. And many times that cost will include the production as well. That's something that you have to look at individually and negotiate. But local cable gets much more affordable. But television allows you to target your market pretty specifically. You can choose the times, the shows that you want to use. It's very effective because it appeals to two senses. The downside is people flip through the commercials. They use those little remote controls and boom, bang, bong, they're gone. So you really need to capture their attention in the first 2 seconds. If you don't, they're gone. So you need something that starts out with a bang, something that really gets their attention right away, not something that builds to a big finish, because nobody will be around to see it. Radio is the same kind of thing. The majority of people who listen to the radio are doing so at work. And so the radio kind of blends into the background. You need to do something a little unique to stand out, to be different, to get their attention. I remember hearing a commercial. It was a beer commercial. There was no speaking until the very end. And you heard a door open and then footsteps across the room. You hear a refrigerator opening, rattling of bottles, a lid being popped, and then you hear somebody drinking. And then this big, ah. It was very effective. It stood out. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obnoxious, but it was very effective. Newspapers are the most commonly used method of advertising. There's a lot of benefits to it. They're pretty affordable. The problem is most people who put in ads don't know what they're doing in newspapers. They just design their own, throw it in there, and say, I have so much space, I got to fill every bit of it with information, and that's usually a bad thing to do. It gets lost in the clutter, and it's kind of hard to get any message at all from a newspaper ad. So they really need to use white space and pictures effectively. Magazines, the big benefit there is it really allows you to target your market. And there's also a long life to your ad with a magazine. They get passed around, they stay in your house for a while. Most magazine subscriptions, or the biggest percentage, are sold to doctors. And you think about it, here's this one magazine sitting in a doctor's office, and you know it sits there for 8 years. And how many people are exposed to that one ad over and over and over again? So that can be a real benefit as well. Now, everybody wants to talk about advertising on the internet, and this can be a great thing. But many times it's not done effectively. Banners, pop-ups, while they can do the job, they're not as effective as we would hope for. What a lot of emphasis is being placed on now is something called search engine management. And I'm just going to give you a little website, going to let this kind of play in the background, and I'm going to explain what search engine management is. This website is for a company called didit.com. You'll hear some pleasant music playing in the background here as we talk. But the idea with search engine management is a lot of people are looking for products by going on to google.com or doing other kind of search engines. What this company and others do is monitor what we call the click-through rate. When people go, and we talked about this briefly earlier in the semester, when people go to Google, type in a word, how many actually end up going to your site and buying products? By analyzing this carefully, companies can decide which words work for them. So if people put in the word cookies into the search engine, how many end up going to Girl Scout site and buying cookies online? I don't even think you can do that. It's just an example. So it helps you know where to put your money. This is a continuous database type of arrangement where they know at any given time how many people have gone to your site from a certain search engine. Why is this important? Because when you put in a thing into Google, what order do they come up in? Well, the ones that match the best, have the most exact match, will be first. But there's usually a number that match. So how do they decide after that? Whoever paid the most. It's definitely something that is bought, something that is purchased. So search engine management is looking at how people look for products online, where we should put our money, how high we should move up in that search engine process. The last step in developing the campaign hopefully is not coming as a surprise to you, and that is to evaluate. While the campaign's running, when it's over, we constantly want to test, look at our sales, look at awareness levels, look at our competition. Is it working? Is it being effective? Is our money, our resources being employed effectively? Now I want to show you one ad, and I want you to just kind of think about it, see if it's an effective ad. Think about getting people's attention, being attractive, what it might take. This is an ad that ran in the IUPUI Sagamore, and here you have two very attractive females modeling with fashionable clothing, inspire, innovate, influence. You think about it, and those are words that are definitely going to appeal to a college audience, female audience. And it talks about the product, it shows pictures of it and gives some of the prices and talks about their special sales hours, etc. Overall, I think you would agree that this is a pretty good ad. Those pictures really get the attention there, so people will look at it and read it. The target market will. Does anybody see a problem? No store is listed. I didn't cut off the store, and no store appeared. This goes to show that even the best plans, even the best strategy, need some common sense applied. Step back, look at the ad, and see if it does what you need it to do. Okay, so in summary, advertising is something that everyone has an opinion about. Everybody in your company is going to tell you what works, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. However, proper research and testing is what should guide that campaign. Go with the research. Go with what your test results tell you, not what the vice president thinks. Okay, it's real important that you back this up, document it, and use the tools that are available. And then I put up here a very famous quote that is used in advertising all the time by John Wanamaker. I know that half of my advertising dollars are being wasted. I just don't know which half. And that's a situation a lot of organizations find themselves in. Hopefully, if you are doing the research and doing the testing, as we've talked about, that won't be the case for you. See you next time.